God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows. God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. But God only knows the real you. There's a kind of love that God only knows.
Welcome to the 34th episode of Your Journey Is Not Over. My name is Tanya Pearson Randolph. This is my own personal journey, and all of the expressions and opinions are of my own. I own all the rights to my personal journey and to Your Journey Is Not Over. Neither are to be used, copied, or edited in any way without my consent. I will pick up where I left off. It was summertime in 1985, and I had been through a car wreck, being dragged off of my moped and beat up severely, not to mention betrayed, by my aunt and one of my favorite older cousins. Looking back now on this, I didn't miss a beat. I moved on as if nothing happened each time. Conditioned is the only word that comes to my mind. I was immune to the trauma and not giving any time at all to process it. I compartmentalized it and I locked it away and I moved on. Isn't that what we do when we're traumatized so much? I think our brains just lock it away and store it somewhere. Again, I didn't miss a beat. I moved on, I worked, I hung out with friends. Mainly the friend that I will call my ride or die. We met the day of that fight I was in, and that I still feel bad for. We just clicked and became best friends fast. So we were together a lot that summer. She is a year older than me and was already in high school and at a different high school than what I would be going to. So during this summer, I got to meet some of her friends that she went to school with. And we would all hang out together. We would drink and smoke. I will say I have a lot of good memories of the summer, a lot of funny memories. So my ride or die introduced me to one of her friends that drove. She was fun to be around. We had a lot of laughs. So after being around this friend a few times, she started talking about running away. At first, it was just talk, funny conversation, and eventually it did turn serious. So we both planned it. We both saved our money. By the way, I will own up to the fact that I stole $50 from my other uncle that happened to be staying at our house at this time. He had rolled change, so I took 5 rolls of quarters. Was it wrong? Yes, it was. I won't even try to justify it. In fact, there is no justification for it. But I do know my dad paid my uncle back, and later on, I in turn paid my dad back. Like I said and have said all along, if I did it and I have said this all along, if I did it, I will own it. And I do. So we set a date to go. It was her car. She was 16 years old and I was 14 years old. So we loaded up pillows, a fan, an Atari, a TV, rugs, blankets, and of course clothes. And I did leave a nice pleasant note for my parents to find. I wasn't even mad when I ran away. So we set out, and as you probably already guessed, yes, we were Florida bound. I said earlier in my journey that Florida is a place I've been running to since I was 14 years old. Well, here's the first trip. So we are on this, what I now realize, dangerous journey for 2 teenage girls doing a cross-country adventure. Anything could have happened to us. God sent angels on this path also that helped, protected, and guided us. Thank goodness above. So first thing, we get pulled over by a police officer in Ohio for speeding. We convinced him we were college bound, so he let us go. I do want to add that even though I was 14 years old, I could and did pass for 18 years old. I looked way older than my age. So we're going down the highway and we're jamming to the music. I Want My MTV and Billy, Don't You Lose My Number. We were excited, not scared. We were too young to know fear or the true dangers of being out in this big world on our own. We did stop, and I used the rolled quarters to call home and check in. I had watched enough TV to know that they could trace the phone booth that I was calling from after 3 minutes. So I would tell the operator to cut my calls off at 2.5 minutes. Of course, my mom was frantic and she was mad at me and hollering and screaming at me. It didn't make me want to call home anymore. I do remember that. So, next thing I remember is that we had a blowout and we were in Atlanta, Georgia. It was the worst traffic ever, and we had a tire blowout. She got us to the side of the road and she did a pretty good job at it. Again, God was right there. He had to be, because we had just switched drivers a few miles before this. Yes, at 14 years old, I was driving a car down I-75 South. Mind you, I'd only drove in Tennessee a few times prior to this, so really I had no experience at all. Again, I think back, and we were young and dumb. So we got the tire changed. That was a nightmare. We had cars going by us at 70, 80 miles per hour. Again, God had to be there to protect us. Once we got the tire changed, we set out again. We finally made it to Apopka, Florida. Yes, we arrived alive. We pulled over at an ABC liquor store so I could use the payphone to call my boyfriend and let him know I was there. By the way, he had no idea at all. I never told him the plans, and I'm sure by this point he knew I had ran away and was probably expecting me. I don't know, we never talked about it. So I went to the payphone and I called him. By his tone, I could tell he wasn't happy with me or my decision to run away. I tried to be normal, but I was too excited. And I said, "Guess where I am?" And he said, "Where?" And I said, "I'm in Florida." And he said, "No, you're not." And I said, "Yes, I am. I'm at an ABC liquor store and there's a Frito-Lay factory across the street." This was the only way that I knew to prove that I was truly there. Then I remember him saying, "Oh my God, you are here." I think there was relief in his voice at that time, not because I ran away to Florida to him. No, he didn't condone that at all. But he knew where I was and I would be safe because he was there. After this phone call, we went and got a hotel room, and I was ready to go swimming in the pool. It had been a long trip. I remember I was swimming and my boyfriend came to the hotel. It was so nice to see him. He was my safety, my confidant, my best friend, the only person that I would tell every single thing to. He would help me deal with my trauma. He would listen and understand me. And he always calmed my fears. Never really knowing why I ran away until just a couple of days ago. Yes, almost 40 years later. That's what happens when you travel on your yellow brick road, your healing journey. I am discovering and understanding why I did some of the things that I did, made some of the choices that I made. Since traveling down my yellow brick road, my healing journey, I've been forced to look at a lot of things that I never even thought about before. And again, get a certain understanding. I now understand why I ran away. Let me start with this. My whole life, I've had my mom, my brother, and other people around me want me to admit that I regretted running away. Even after I was a mom, I got told, "What would you do if your kids did that?" My first thought is I would go with them. In fact, that's how I handled that. I have two grown daughters now, but there was a time for each of them when they grew into their rebellious years. Reruns is what I always called it. I invented every trick in the book for a rebellious teenage girl. But I do remember when they would threaten me to run away, I would always say with humor, "Do I have time to pack? I want to go. Please let me go too. Plus, I can get your dad's credit cards and I can drive us. Where are we going?" By the way, my kids hated my humor or my reverse psychology. So, never really knowing why I did that until, again, a couple days ago. I wasn't mad when I left. Things were okay. I did what was expected of me at home, and I was gone a lot. So, there were no recent incidents with my mom. So, that wasn't the reason. The reason is, and now I understand why I would never say I regretted it, is that because I had experienced massive trauma that summer. First, the car wreck. We hit a telephone pole head on, doing about 40 miles an hour, and we were on wet blacktop. It was one of my worst fears in life, and I had experienced it and moved on like it didn't happen. And processed trauma. Then I was dragged off of my moped and betrayed and hurt by my favorite aunt that I loved, and one of my favorite and always protective over me older cousins. So again, trauma that I again just moved on from. Again, unprocessed trauma that was accepted, stored away, compartmentalized. So all of that trauma that I wasn't even aware of then, and again, 40 years later, I am just now starting to get an understanding of it. So that trauma drove me to run away. The only person I trusted and the only person that knew me, knew everything about me, was the person I ran away to. This concludes my podcast for today. Thursday is Thanksgiving, and I will not be sending a podcast out. I do want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and many blessings to you and your families. Also, I do want to say thank you to those that support me and love me unconditionally. I'm so grateful, and I send nothing but love to each and every one of you. I will be back on the mic December 3rd. Please stay tuned and listen in. And please always remember, your journey is not over. God bless.
God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows.